Around about a year ago, I made a video going over how strong Luffy would be in his base, and although I did take the liberties of adding gear 2 and gear 3 on, this time I want to obviously go over how strong he would be but without his devil fruit completely. I know inside of the community there's a lot of discussions going on whether his devil fruit carries him, and obviously his devil fruit does give him a boost, but in this video I'm really going to go over why Luffy isn't carried too hard by his devil fruit and why without it he is still somebody that you should fear. Well, in terms of power scaling, not as an actual person. I mean, who can really be scared of this guy? But if you're new to the channel and you like this type of content, you know what to do: like and subscribe, since I do upload videos like this consistently, and you know, I'll let you guys vote for the next video like you did with this one. It was really a win-win. You guys like and subscribe and you get more content like this. But I think that's enough of my rambling. I know what you're really here for. Let's talk on how strong Luffy would be without his devil fruit. In this video I'm going to cover many different pointers, but the main pointers I want to come back to over and over again are going to be stuff like his gears and the fact that he loses a lot of punching power and obviously durability from his devil fruit being taken away. So I'm going to start with his gears first, and his gears are the biggest thing he's going to lose because he does spam his gears a lot, with gear 2 being basically his new base along with gear 3. Luffy spams like Red Rock and Elephant Gun and all of these things over and over again, like it's literally just his base. And with him losing the extra punching power, because obviously with his arms stretching back as he usually does, and then obviously him enlarging himself and obviously speeding himself up with gear 2, he loses a lot of punching power and speed. Now when I say a lot, I don't mean it's like drastic. I mean gear 2 and gear 3 right now isn't a big jump compared to obviously where it was pre-time skip. But when you then start to talk about gear 4 and gear 5, they really push him up the tiers and basically moving up the ladder in power scaling as a whole. In his fight against Kaido, we see this is very prevalent, as obviously Luffy is fighting in his base, let's just say, and then when Kaido begins to ramp it up, he's forced into gear 4, and then when he unlocks gear 5, he has to stay in gear 5. When he starts to fight those upper echelon of characters, his base isn't an answer, so he has to refer to his gear 4 and his gear 5s. Now I know a lot of people are going to be looking at, oh, his AP is going to go down drastically. One thing I'm looking at especially is his speed. His speed is going to go down drastically because gear 2 speeds him up, gear 4 obviously speeds him up, and gear 5 speeds him up as well. His speed won't be at the level that we obviously like to see it at, but he will have future sight. Obviously he keeps all of his hakis, and obviously I'm going to talk about his hakis in a minute, but as for right now, his speed is going to drop along with his AP, of course. Along with his AP and speed, his durability is going to dip as well, because remember, Luffy can take blunt force attacks, and obviously if they're covered in haki, he's going to damage him, but I still think at a certain level he's going to be able to take it better than obviously take slashing attacks. But now that all of his stats are basically at base level, it now introduces another fear factor for Luffy, if that makes sense. So all of these hits are now going to cause more damage on him, and he's not going to be able to soak it up as well. And so with the Nika fruit being a Zoan type, it also shows you that obviously he's going to be able to soak up damage more naturally since it's a Zoan type. And now when we take a step back and look at his abilities as a whole, you're now like, yeah, he does take a massive step down, but don't get me wrong, he's still a really competitive fighter, and I'm going to show you why he's a competitive fighter. Back in chapter 10:10, Luffy obviously unlocks Conqueror's Haki for the first time, and when he does this, he fights Kaido without using his devil fruit for a short period of time. And when he does this, we're able to obviously see where he's at in strength. Luffy without his devil fruit can contend top tiers, but he's not going to be able to defeat them, because that's obviously why he loses, and obviously later why he then refers to gear 2, gear 3, gear 4, and then obviously later gear 5. Now don't get me wrong, Luffy has really good natural raw strength, and I do believe as time goes on he'll be able to inherit that Garp strength, but as of right now he doesn't have that Garp strength, and I don't even think he has old Garp strength. That may sound crazy, but I don't think Luffy right now without his devil fruit has old Garp strength, since old Garp does have pretty good feats. I mean, that episode just came out where he's throwing people around with just his raw fists. Garp is him, okay? And I think Luffy would be a miniature version of him, But obviously I'm not going to give Luffy the time to obviously sit there and learn his car provides Devil Fruit. I'm just taking the Devil Fruit away from him in this video and just showing you guys what he would be like. I'm talking on fighting styles. I want to spin the block on his durability and talk about how his durability from his Devil Fruit really did impact his fighting style. As we know, Luffy likes to take blows in fights. Like, we've seen it over and over again. Against Kaido, he was taking blows 24/7. Against Katakuri, he was doing it, and so on and so forth. Luffy likes to take hits to obviously land attacks or just learn his opponent. Now, without his Devil Fruit, he won't have that enhanced durability. And I know you're going to be like, oh, but they have Haki, so it's no. Luffy's Devil Fruit does still apply, but it's not going to be as hard since, you know, he has Haki at their level, so it's kind of like, I think it just kind of like neutralizes itself out, but that's besides the point. He does have the extra durability from his Devil Fruit to help him, but without it, it now forces him to fight a different fight, and this could obviously change where his placement is in the list. And with his durability dropping, we obviously need to now talk about his speed, and yes, he will be slower, but I think this Luffy would rely way more on his future sight and his speed and force that to be better, because he can't take those hits unlike obviously the regular Luffy can. And because of that, I don't know if he's going to be able to fight those top tiers like how Garp or Shanks would, because those guys are used to their bodies just not being as durable, but they have to be faster than the other people, unlike obviously Luffy now. People like Kaido can be fast as well, but obviously they rely on their durability to get them through fights and their endurance to get through fights, because that's just, they have zones and that's what they rely on. They're going to rely on their Zoan, their Haki, and obviously their speed and whatnot. They can have enough speed to tag you, but they're not really going to care about it too much. They're just going to rely on the durability, allow you to get your hits off, and then they're just going to wail on you. And I know Kaido is a fast fighter, don't get me wrong, and obviously Luffy in his Gear 5 form is a fast fighter, but those extra attributes do keep them up there with the people that have no special attributes that will really hone their raw strength and hone their raw speed to where they can match them. And without it, and obviously Luffy taking it away from him, that then forces him down a tier and puts him in the leagues of people like Kizaru, Fujitora, Green Bull, Old Garp. All those type of people now become a problem to him, when before they probably wouldn't have been a problem to him. Now, with him losing his Devil Fruit, it obviously does open up the doors to him now being able to fight in water and use water-based things or whatever, or sea stone cuffs or whatnot. But personally, I don't see Luffy as the type to use weapons, so I don't know if sea stone weapons are going to be a thing for him. But if he wanted to use them, they could be a massive help in fights, but I don't see him using it. But yeah, I think Luffy's stats overall would drop, but there will be a few advantages that he would gain, but obviously, as I said, their things will drop, and we now need to really look at where he would be at on the list. Now, personally, I had him in the top 7 before, but now let's talk about where he would be at in tier list and how strong he's actually going to be. As I mentioned before, people like Old Garp, Kizaru, Fujitora and whatnot, they will now be problems for Luffy, as he's lost a large chunk of what makes him Luffy. Now, don't get me wrong, over time he's going to be able to adapt and obviously grow, and he'll get to that prime Garp or Shanks levels in terms of like just raw strength, raw speed and whatever, and he's going to be able to obviously keep up with those people that he was contending with before. But now it's going to be a little bit different, and I want to really see where he can obviously thrive at. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is the fact that his gears obviously do strain him, meaning that he has a lot more stamina to play with now. I know obviously over time Gear 3, Gear 2 and Gear 4 and obviously eventually Gear 5 will stop putting such a massive strain on his body, but it still does take a little bit of stamina away from him to obviously switch through all of these things and constantly activate them. So without it, he will have a lot more stamina to play with, and we can see Luffy in longer fights, meaning he will be able to actually bloom his Haki if it got down to it. But we're not talking on that right now, but we're going to talk about where he's going to be in terms of placements and stuff, and obviously where he would be at without the blooms, and obviously if he was to fight somebody as stronger than him, if he could get to that level. Now, me personally, I feel like Luffy would be in the Fujitora, Green Bull, Kizaru. He'd be in that sort of plane, since without his Devil Fruit, he wouldn't have all the special abilities to obviously deal with these type of people or just be straight up stronger than them. But his base stats should be around their levels. Obviously, he has all 3 types of Haki advanced, and just in terms of raw strength, he is pretty strong. Now, with his extra stamina and stuff being added on, would he be able to defeat people like this? Well, that is a discussion, and actually I feel like I'm going to entertain it right now. Against somebody like Green Bull, your main attribute and the thing that you need for him is AP in my eyes. You either need AP or you need speed, or in fact you usually need a combination of both. The best way to really deal with this guy, if you're going to get into a real brawl with him, is first of all, you need to be able to take him out before he can even regenerate, and against his vines and whatever he's going to try to do with the land around you, you need to be able to deal with that quickly, because we don't know if this guy can just straight up poison you, or he can just do whatever he really wants with the plants. So when fighting him, you need to be quick and precise. Now, if you allow the fight to drag out, somebody like Green Bull is going to tire you out, since he's obviously nature and he doesn't really need food or water to survive. What he really survives on is just nutrients, and he can just continuously suck that out of the land, and he's going to get stronger, or he's going to keep that consistent pace while you whittle out. And I know Luffy is somebody that can bloom in fights, and obviously he is somebody that with his devil fruit being removed, he will have more stamina. But I think it's a bit of a 50-50 fight now, instead of it being obviously a wash in Luffy's favor. Now versus Fujitora, I do have this saying if Fujitora decides to drop a moon on you, there's nothing you can really do, and he's technically the strongest in the verse. But aside from that, I think this fight will more go into Luffy's favor, and I do believe that Green Bull is more of a terrible matchup for Luffy in this condition, as I do believe that Luffy has stronger haki than Fujitora, so he could just break free of his gravity, and if he can't, I think he does have the stamina wherever to whittle out Fujitora, and yeah, I see that going more in Luffy's favor. Now for somebody like Kizaru, I'm sorry to say, but I think Kizaru is going to be stronger than this Luffy, and I do see old Garp being stronger than this Luffy as well. I do think he'll be able to beat Rayleigh though, and people like Zoro and the rest, they're not going to be on his level. I still say like Luffy defeating Zoro, even in his Ashura form. I can just see the future sight really helping him out in that fight, and obviously you could say both of them can bloom during the fight, and obviously it goes one way or whatever, but I think if we're going to put him in these certain scenarios, I think that Luffy, I mean, if he's able to obviously bloom, I think he would obviously then surpass Kizaru and stuff like that, since I think he would just turn into just a mini version of Garp. But aside from that, I think that against these mid-level characters, obviously aside from Zoro, because I don't think Zoro can really contend with any of these guys like in like a extreme fight, but when it gets down to these guys, this is where Luffy will start to obviously be like, okay, cool, he can get through this battle, but I don't think he can get through that battle. And that's what I love about taking his devil fruit away from him, because it really just put him in the mud and really says, okay, cool, fend for yourself. And so let's recap. Luffy without his devil fruit does lose a lot of his stats and does lose what basically makes him Luffy, but as a fighter, I kind of just see him as a miniature Garp, or just a more matured version of Kobe. I see him obviously doing all these big attacks, and he'll be doing all these massive things, but in terms of just like what he usually does, he won't be able to do it. His fighting style will have to change. Like there isn't like if, ands, buts or whys. No, it has to change. And then obviously along with that, there are other things that will need to go on, but I still do see him in that like top 10 to top 15 sort of range. You put him there and you'll be fine. Instead of him being like the top 7, you can argue him for like 2, or you can argue him from 7. No, he has to be in the top 10 to 15 range, and obviously you can just have arguments from there. Obviously his haki does help him out, so that's something that we do need to obviously praise him for. But yeah, I think that's it from me today. If you guys obviously disagree with me down below, you know what to do. Just like argue, and make sure to keep it civil though, because I'm not trying to have anybody like turn up at each other's doorsteps and try to punch each other up. Like let's relax on that. But yeah, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you for all the support, and yeah.